Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is your favorite East Texas podcast, 903 Sports. I am your host, Cameron Brown, joined by the boys, Mason Cudd, Hunter Shattuck, and Trent Sansom. Good to be back, boys. It's been a while, but we've got a lot to discuss today, and let's go ahead and jump right into it. We'll talk about the College Football National Championship. Kind of a big deal for one of our podcast hosts, former Alabama alumni Mason Cudd. So, Cudd, I will give you the floor to discuss the game.
Okay, guys. First of all, I think this game's going to be an absolute war. And honestly, I'm pretty proud of my squad, obviously. We've overcome some adversity later in the year. But honestly, as we look back at the SEC Championship game, if you look at the numbers, you know, we got Stetson Bennett in third and long situations, and he ended up throwing 2 picks. And I think really the key to success is making him throw to someone other than Brock Bowers. I mean, he had 10 grabs, 139 yards, and a touchdown. And the next highest wide receiver that they had on the team had 4 catches for 40 yards. So I think that if we can get some pressure, stop that run up front, and like I said, make someone else beat us really other than that tight end. And also on the offensive side, I mean, Bryce Young killed him on the ground in that championship game. He had 3 rushes for 40 yards and a touchdown, and I believe 2 of those were on third and long. So I really think if we can kind of play the same sort of defensive and offensive game plan, I think that we'll be successful. And personally, my final score prediction is 34-21. Of course, the Tide on top.
Cuz going to roll Tide.
From a gambling standpoint, +3, lock, and 52, that's an over. So that's what I think from start to finish. But I'm sure Kirby Smart will have some tricks up his sleeves and get people in motion and try and move the ball.
That's the Cudd analysis.
That's right.
As an innocent bystander of someone who hates both teams in the Natty, I would have to say that I do agree with you. I think it would be really hard to fade Nick Saban as an underdog. I mean, we learned that lesson in the SEC Championship, and Bama steamrolled them. Now, I do think Georgia's going to be ready to play. It's going to be a hell of a game. So, the reason I'm going with Bama, Bama has the Heisman winner, and they have the greatest coach of all time. That's really that's your recipe for success. I do think, though, Georgia has a more talented team. I really do. Georgia has one of the best defenses I've ever seen. They have the studs like Nakobe Dean, Jordan Davis, Adam Anderson, Quay Walker. They're stacked on defense. But it's all going to come down to, for Georgia, it's going to come down to Stetson Bennett's shoulders, like you said, Cut. I agree. Is he going to play like he did against Michigan in the semifinals? Or is he going to play like he did in the SEC Championship? He was terrible in the SEC Championship. I thought they may go to JT Daniels for the playoff. So it'll be interesting. I'm excited. I'll be rallying your boys, Cut. I think +3 is a great pick, and I think the Tide went outright. Trent, Hunter, any thoughts on the playoff on Monday night? Hunter, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I don't want to get too much into the statistics or analytics side of it. I'll let Cudd handle that. He's probably better off. But, man, Georgia's a real good team, and typically good teams don't lose to the same team twice in a year, just around the board. So I'd be kind of surprised if Bama pulled it off, I'm going to be honest, Cudd. So I don't know if I'm going to go all out and pick Georgia because obviously it's not smart to pick against Nick Saban in a big football game. But, man, I'd be really, really shocked if a good team like Georgia lost to the same team twice in one season, and about a month apart at that. So
yeah, that's a good point, Hunter. And I will say big money is taking Georgia that I've been reading about. All the big wigs are hammering the dog, so they seem like the trendy pick. Sansom, what about you? I know you're having a tough time with this being an all-SEC championship and all. I'll be thinking about you Monday night.
No, hey, it's still the best conference. I mean, you got Georgia and Alabama, but then outside of that, it's a whole lot of nothing, in my opinion.
Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that,
I'm sure. But no, I'm kind of like Hunter. Nothing analytical, but just thinking about 2 players in the top of or on my mind, if Bama's going to win, who they need to keep in check. Cud's already mentioned Bowers. They have got to. I mean, teams that have not kept him in check, I mean, they have got obliterated by him.
That kid's
I'm talking. Yeah, 10+ catches, over 100 yards, a couple touchdowns. I mean, it's actually it's a shame he didn't get like at least a semifinalist for the best tight end in the country. And I think it's just because he's a freshman. And so, his name went out there like all the other great tight ends that have been nominated for that award. But if you can keep Bowers in check and then you can keep Cook in check. I know he's not even the starting running back, but, man, he brings a change of pace that is something that Zeus can't bring, that Zamir White doesn't bring. And I think Alabama did a real good job with Zamir White, but I think that Cook kind of hurt him a little bit in the championship game. And I think if they keep Cook and Bowers in check, then I think I'm kind of like Cud. I think Bama rolls on. I don't know if it's a 2-score victory, but I think they can win by 7. I think it's going to be a little bit closer of a ball game.
And another thing about it is Bama has had Georgia's number for the last, 8 years? Beating him in the SEC Championship, beating him in the Natty. Yeah. In, what was it? That was 2018 in that national championship. I mean, they've had their number. Kirby's not been able to get over that hump, so that'll be interesting to see. Well, Trent, what do you think about just take all that out of the picture, take Saban and Kirby out of the picture, talent perspective? I personally think Georgia's the more talented ball club. I really do, but which is rare for Alabama to be in a national championship and not be the more talented team. They have a lot of great players. Don't get me wrong,
right?
But is that an outlandish take?
No. Actually, let me look that up. As far as I just want to look up who had the best recruiting classes over the last couple of years. I want to say Georgia has had the higher.
Yeah, they've been rolling.
The higher recruiting classes the last 5 years. But let me check on that for sure. But I would say Georgia is a more talented team for sure because Kirby's been stockpiling 5-stars over there on defense ever since he's been there.
What about you, Cuds? Is that an outlandish take?
No, I don't think it's outlandish at all. I mean, obviously, I think they're not better, but I think they're at least just as talented in pretty much every position. Like you said, Trent, hell, they've been getting great recruits at every position on the defensive side of the ball. Hell, they've been able to have great running backs and, out of the backfield backs. I mean, and quite honestly, at the quarterback position at that SEC championship game, the way Stetson Bennett was struggling, I was really surprised that he didn't roll out JT Daniels, and just kind of see how he played. But he didn't, and I'm kind of anxious to see how that plays out in the championship. Like, let's say, Stetson kind of starts out slow, maybe throws an early pick or something, and we jump out a little bit on him. What does Kirby do? Because he hasn't really made a decision like that before yet, at least against us. So I'm kind of anxious to see what goes on, at the QB position for the Dogs for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point because, like I said earlier, if Stetson plays like he did against Michigan, he'll be just fine. But if he plays like he did in the SEC Championship, he may be watching the second half from the Pine and they bring in JT Daniels, kind of like how Alabama did with Tua and Jalen a few years ago in that national championship when Tua was a freshman. So yeah. It'll be interesting. I'm excited for the game. It's going to be, it's like I said, it's going to be the definition of a war that we like to use a lot. Those are the best 2 teams in the country, and they proved it all year long. So, I'll be excited to see it, and we'll see. I hope they tie. Be fine with me. Neither one of them win the national championship. Because I'm a good friend, Cut. I'll root for Alabama.
You better.
Trent, any last thoughts on the Natty?
Yeah, just looking at the recruiting rankings, Bama was number 1 for 2021, and Georgia was 5. And then if you go down to 2020, it's flip-flop. Georgia's 1, Bama's 2. 2019, it's Bama 1, Georgia 2. And then 2018 is Georgia 1, Bama 5. And then it was reversed that for 2017. That's about as far back as you're going to go for the players that are going to be on the current roster right now. 2017 is going to be the last year. But it looks like Bama actually pulls in high-ranked classes over the last 5. But
interesting.
I think some of that's due to the quantity, not just the quality. They're getting quality guys, but Georgia, the amount of 5-stars they've gotten in the last 5 years, I think, is the most. And you're talking about blue-chip recruits compared to, the quantity that Bama pulls in. I think Georgia would have a higher percentage of blue chip recruits.
And fittingly, those have probably been the best 2 teams in the country for the last 3 or 4 years. So that's a pretty good transition to what I want to talk about next. And I want to talk about the college football playoff as it is now. So we're in what? Year 8 of the playoff. So started like in 14 or 13.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
How many good football games have we had in the semifinals, honestly, that you can think of? I remember Georgia-Oklahoma was a really good game. When Baker's last game, that was a hell of a game.
Yeah, it's a great game.
I mean, they've been blowouts. Friday night was a huge disappointment for me. Michigan got smoked. Cincinnati got smoked. And that's just how far ahead Georgia and Bama are of everybody else. Because Michigan deserved to be there. Cincinnati deserved to be there. But, I mean, neither one of them looked like they belong in the same field at the end of the day. So, Hunter, I'll ask you. So, what do we need to do? Is 4 fine? We just have to roll with it? Should we go to 8? Should we just go back to 2? Or should maybe 12? What do you think, Hunter?
Well, I think we should expand it for sure. And
I agree.
to go to your point, it's not even about how the games are played out. I mean, just look at the lines before the games. They don't even expect them to be close. These are supposed to be like, take out the 1-4 matchup, because I could see how that might be expected to be a little lopsided with how top heavy college football can get. But the 2 versus 3 matchup, there's no excuse for that to be a blowout. I mean, it's absurd. I think the line was about 8 before that game started, but even that felt like too close. You know what I mean? I mean, that felt like Michigan never really had a prayer.
Right.
But in my opinion, I think this problem can be solved by expanding the playoff, and it's a little bit of a trickle-down effect, in my opinion, because if right now, and I think Trent and I have talked about this before, but if I'm a recruit and I want to play for a championship, I want to make the playoff, I have to go to Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma. That's about it. But if you expand it to 8 teams, preferably 12, that's what I would like to see. Then if I want to go to, Baylor, obviously I'm biased, but if I want to go play for maybe a school that might have a chance of winning a non-SEC conference or non-Big Ten, I can still make the playoff. I can go to another school, get more playing time early on, as opposed to go to Bama and ride the pine or redshirt and not emerge until my junior year. I can go to a smaller school, not even necessarily a smaller school, just a non-Bama or Georgia school, and have a reasonable expectation of making the playoff. So I think you would see those top recruits kind of scatter a little bit away from the top 2 or 3 schools and maybe help a little bit of the parity at the top. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point. And me and Trent have talked about that some too, about how it would maybe not completely, but it would balance out recruiting a little bit. I mean,
and that's all we need is just a little bit.
Exactly. And then, so let's just say we go to 12. You could put your Rose Bowl, your Sugar Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, all the big bowls would be playoff bowls. So those kids are playing in the college football playoff, and you're playing in your prestigious bowls that everyone loves. And you won't see any opt-outs like we had in what was the bowl with Pitt and Michigan State? Was that the Fiesta Bowl? Or that was one of the big bowls. We'll say
you can't even keep it straight. That's the perfect example of why they don't even matter. You can't even keep them straight.
Exactly, and those are big bowls, and everyone's wondering, well, why don't these kids want to play in the Rose Bowl? I mean, why don't they want to play in the Fiesta Bowl? I think you could fix that. Make the playoff bigger. We'll go to 12. We'll give Bama, Georgia, Cincy, Michigan a bye, and then we'll have those that be 8 teams, and they would play, and you play in that way. You may have to shrink the season by a game, maybe 2, go that way. I just think it'd be better for viewing pleasure. It'd be better. You could get these big bowls to matter again, and then we could roll that way. That's what I think. I think it was just something's got to change in college football. I love college football. We all do. I think something's broken. It just, I don't know. I mean, you got the NBA has 16 teams that make the playoffs. NFL has they have 14 now. College basketball is 64, and college football has 4. And I don't know. It just seems odd to me. What about you, Cud? What do you think? Keep the playoff, expand it?
Honestly, I absolutely agree to expand it. I mean, and this is what I'm about to say here is I think really what started the whole argument to go to the 4 is that how many teams when they had the BCS, the Boise States and the TCU when they went to the Rose Bowl, they're out there on the 3 and 4 spot saying, "Hey, we're a pretty good ball club. Like we deserve a chance." And then I really think that's really what pushed it to the 4. And then I think if, like you were saying, Cameron, if you had the top 4 get the bye and then have that next 8, if you don't get in the top 12, you don't have an argument to even play for any of the marbles, in my opinion. So I think that if they do that, it'll take less pressure off the committee. You know, everyone did they get it right? You know, I think that it'll just play out itself really at that point. You know, and I mean, little preview of what the playoffs would be this year. You'd have, you know, the 4 byes. You'd have Ole Miss and Oklahoma State play, Notre Dame and Pitt, Baylor, Michigan State, Ohio State, and Utah. And I mean, those are all good football games, I think.
All those teams would be at full strength, and they wouldn't have their opt-outs. Like Kenny Pickett sitting out for Pitt or Kenneth Walker Jr. for Michigan State sitting out. And
exactly. Like, if Kenny Pickett has got a chance to play for, you know, all the marbles, he's not saying, "Oh, I'm going to the league." You know,
he's going to want to play. He's going to play for the Natty. Exactly. And we get all those big time games that matter. And I don't know. I think at least 8. I'd love to see 8. 12. I'd really like to see. I think they're going to go to 8. I really do. Yeah, I think it's time. So that'll be interesting. And then so we touched on a little bit about the opt outs, and that was a pretty big discussion in the college football atmosphere for the last few weeks about, you know, we saw all the kids opt out, and then Kirk Herbstreit had a huge deal about, you know, they just don't care anymore. There's no pride, blah, blah, blah. And then Matt Corral goes out and plays in the Sugar Bowl and rolls his ankle in the first quarter. And, hey, all props to him for wanting to play. And in my opinion, if you want to play, play. If you don't. There shouldn't be – there's so much money at stake for the guys in the NFL. You go out there and tear your ACL. Like, I remember Jalen Smith for the Cowboys. He was playing in a BCS Bowl, and he tore his ACL. And he was supposed to be a first-round pick. Ended up going in the 4th, 5th round. He's out of the league now. So, and that's an extreme circumstance, but I don't blame the kids for wanting to sit out. I think if you want to play, that's great. But if not, you know, just, you know, you got to do what's best for you at the end of the day, and you cough up that much money. I mean, that'd be a tough pill to swallow. You go out and blow out your ACL. But if everyone is so focused on wanting to get rid of these opt-outs, you got to expand the playoff. You got to make these big New Year's Six bowls matter. I mean, they're fun for us to watch. Like, the Rose Bowl was awesome between Utah and Ohio State, but for those kids, like, their season's over. They're just having fun in the bowl game. It's that time. So, Trent, what about you? What do you think about all these opt-outs and how things are playing out in the college football world? Because it's different than when we were younger. Everybody played in the bowl games.
Right. Yeah, I think the opt-out started to occur back when was it McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette? I think both of them opted out of their bowl games. Yep. And I think those were the first 2 big bowl games you saw. You know, the New Year's Six bowl games that you saw players opt out of, and it's obviously a trend that's caught on, and more players are opting out and whatnot. And I want to give a shout out to Matt Corral for playing in that ball game.
Yeah,
and I think awesome. Honestly, I don't think he'd do it any different. A guy like that has that mentality to go ahead and just play. I don't think he'd change a thing.
I agree.
I think he'd tell you that. And so, you know, unfortunate things happen all the time. But I mean, that kid's still going to go out and get drafted pretty high. I doubt that injury is going to knock him down the draft board at all. But like you said, I mean, the way that you correct for these opt-outs, and I'm not going to fault the kid for doing it. I personally like to see somebody like a Matt Corral go out and play. I think it's really good for the sport. I think it says a lot about their character. Not that it diminishes your character not to play in it, but just, you know, selfishly and for the sport, I think it's a good thing. But like you said, just expand the playoffs, make the bowl games meaningful again. Because it started to make all the other bowl games outside of the New Year's Six meaningless, and now we're to the point where it seems like the New Year's Bowls are meaningless. If you're not in the playoffs, it's become meaningless. So I think expansion is what's needed.
I agree. Hunter, what about you? Let's get your thoughts on the topic.
Well, I actually kind of have a question. So if we do expand the playoff, let's say it goes to 12 teams, we all get our way. What do you do with the other bowl games? Do they stop existing, or do you still play the Tax Slayer Bowl and the Dollar General Bowl?
See that?
What do you think we should do?
That was another topic of what I wanted to bring up. Is I don't know if y'all follow Danny Cannell on Twitter, but he's a big, you know, social media college football analyst, and he is very anti all these bowl games that we have. I like it as a fan. I have no life. I'll watch Eastern Michigan play Liberty in the Lending Tree Bowl at 8 o'clock on a Thursday night, but not everybody may want to do that. But so to answer your question, Hunter, I think if we expanded 12, that'd be great. But for teams like Western Michigan that have no chance to, they're not going to make the college football playoff. I mean, even if they go to 12 games, they're still not going to get in. The bowl games are still a reward at the end of the day for those kids. They earn the bowl game. They get to go play. They go on some trip. Some of them get to go to the Bahamas. And I think that's cool for them. to get to go do that. You do not agree.
Congratulations. You went 6-6 in the MAC. You get to go to the Bahamas.
But
Don't give me that.
It's Western Michigan.
It's only a reward because how many games are there now? 38? That's not a reward. That's almost half of college football.
No, there's way more. There's 80 teams that make a bowl game now.
Exactly. Yeah, that's not a reward. You were top 60% in the country. Great. Here you go. That's get out of here with that. I'm not in on that.
Okay, so what's the criteria then? Let me ask you that. What would
if you don't make the playoff? If you don't make the playoff by Christmas, you're not playing football anymore. That's how it goes. That's how it is in every other sport. If you don't make the postseason, you're done.
So no bowl game at all.
Why is college football any different?
So no bowl game at all.
No.
So
the only reason that people want to keep the bowl games is because that's how it's always been. But if you compare it to any other sport, it'd be ridiculous. Let's say we're Rangers fans, right? Except for Trent, he doesn't count.
Unfortunately.
Then after this past season, what if the Rangers went and played against, I don't know, the Angels in the TaxAct Bowl? That'd be stupid. Our season was over after the 162nd game. Why should college football be any different?
Okay, but to rebuttal that, there's also only 32 teams in MLB. There's 131 now in college football. So if we want to do that, then let's just have a massive playoff. Let's just have March Madness for football. Hey, like I said, I'd be down for that. That's never going to happen, but I would love that. So, but, we have to – the reason to have the bowl, let's be honest, is not for the kids to go have fun. It's for all the sponsors. Your Dollar Tree Bowl and now they got a Jimmy Kimmel L.A. Bowl. It's all about the sponsors. They've got – I don't know if y'all watched a lot of the bowls this year, but they've got sponsors up and down the field. At the 30, the 40, the 20, they got some big emblem of somebody else who's got their name on the bowl. So, it's obviously about the sponsors, and they're never going to go away. But like I said, I like to watch the small bowls, and I could see your argument about not wanting to have 6-6 Eastern Michigan play 6-6 UTEP in the Buttercup Bowl. I see where you're coming from there. But
if it's about the money, I understand it. But don't give me some. They earned it. They played hard. Don't give me that. That's not what we're doing here.
So if you had it your way, you would go 12-team playoff, and that's it. Nobody else is in.
Well, if I'm supreme lord of NCAA,
Lord help us.
I'm probably going. Not if I just get a blank slate, I'd probably go 16 and just straight up 16 team, 1 versus 16, 2 versus 15. Just play it out, and then no bowl games.
Okay. So let me push back again, and then I'll let Cud talk. So we do 16. What we've been arguing for the last few years about, hey, the small guys got no chance. They have no chance for 16. You go. Well, if they go undefeated, they have a chance for the playoff. But let's say, I keep using Eastern Michigan. I don't know why they keep coming in my head. But let's say they go 11-1 in the MAC. They're not getting a 16-team playoff. That team deserves to play some kind of postseason event, right? Out of 131 teams, they had a great year, 11-1. If basketball team gets to go play in March Madness with 64 teams, why doesn't that team get a chance to play in some kind of postseason? You're killing all those teams, in my opinion.
You're probably right. My rebuttal to that would be don't lose. If you want to make it into the playoff, just win. I know that's probably harsh, but there's a reason that Eastern Michigan shouldn't play for a national championship at 11-1, right? If they have a game on their schedule that they lost, they don't deserve a chance to win a national championship. In the what are they even in? The MAC, you said?
In the MAC.
Yeah, if you lose a game in the MAC, you're not one of the best teams in the country. Get out of here.
Don't disrespect MACtion. They gets me and Cud through every Tuesday and Wednesday of the week. Is that right, Cud?
That's right. Best days of the week.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
I stand by it. 16 teams, no bowls. I like it.
Cud, what about you? What do you think? I've been jumping in too much here.
Hunter, you make good points. Like Wyoming beating Kent State in the Potato Bowl doesn't mean anything as far as, for the program really or anything like that. But I agree more with Cameron. Like it's really about it's about the kids getting to go play, even though that Potato Bowl doesn't just be like, oh man, here's your gold medal, But I agree. I love the bowls. I think it's great for these small schools to be able to go play like a good bowl game against another at least, competitive. I guess like we were back talking about the Michigan Georgia game. Like those games are supposed to be evenly competitive. So I think that it's a cool way for those kids to be able to travel and be able to play a game, somewhere, and there'll be fans travel. And now, granted, there's not a whole lot of fans traveling to the Bahamas for Toledo game or whatever, but I think it's a cool. I like it. I really like the Bulls. So I'd have to agree with both of you in different ways, but I like them, and I think they should keep going.
Trent, I'll let you jump in here.
Yeah, I'm like Coach just said. Both of y'all bring up great points. Like, I for one would love it to be expanded. If you're in the top 25, we got to find out a way for you to get in the playoff. Because I think that solves everything. Because then all of a sudden, maybe an 11-1, Eastern Michigan is in there. You know what I mean? I don't know how that works out because you have 25 teams. Obviously, somebody's going to have to get a bye. It can't be an even number. Maybe it's just the number one team. But hell, that's why you're the number one team. There's got to be, a reward for you for being number one. But I mean, maybe that's too much. But like to your point, Cameron, if we go to a 12-team playoff or 16-team playoff, what are you going to do with, the king of the MACtion? I mean, they're not going to get put into a 12 or 16-team playoff. So maybe you might, but you got to figure out a way that these kids that are playing at these smaller schools, you got to figure out a way for them to be rewarded at the end of the season. I think
that's their bowl game.
Exactly. So I mean, I was thinking whenever y'all were talking, I was like, well, maybe they do something kind of like college basketball where you have the NIT, right? Maybe there's two sets of playoffs. But I mean, is that going to happen? Probably not. But I think that would be fun for us, guys like us who love sports. I think that'd be pretty cool to watch.
We very well could be going towards all the Power Fives branch off and do the playoff, and then the mid majors all branch off and do their own thing. So Hunter, I know you're one to jump in, so I'll let you respond here. You're the no fun police right now.
Well, I had something when Trent was talking and I lost it, but I want to. Whenever you talk about this team that wins the MAC, or let's say they win the American Conference or whatever, and then you talk about how they deserve something else after that. Why do they deserve? They just won conference. If they win their conference, they won conference. Great. Like that's how it goes. If let's say whoever, Liberty or whatever, wins whatever conference they play in college basketball, but they don't win the conference tournament, then they don't get into the tournament. They're done. The season's over, even though they had a great season. So it's not like it's a right to play something after regular season play just because you had a good regular season. If you're just not a very good football team, you just play in a crappy conference, why do you deserve something after the regular season? That's what I have a hard time with, talking about it as a right. Like, that's not a right. Play better. Don't lose. If you go undefeated and I'm taking my 16 teams, you're in. If you don't lose a football game, you're in. It's that simple. And if you're Eastern Michigan, you should not be able to afford a loss. So don't give me the whole, well, they had one bad game. You don't get that luxury at Eastern Michigan. You do at Bama, you don't at Eastern Michigan. So get out of here. I'm done. I'm over this topic.
If any Eastern Michigan Eagle listen to this podcast, we are sorry. We are not picking on you. You have just become the team we have decided to choose.
I'll tell you what, if any Eastern Michigan Eagles listen to this, I'll eat my hat.
Yeah.
I mean, you make some good points, Hunter. I agree. The bowls are not going away, though. I mean, this
You're right.
As many sponsors and as much money as they make on these things. What I will say, and then we got to move on. What I will say is sad about some of these bowl games is you watch Toledo play Middle Tennessee. There's 1,000 people there. There's nobody there, and that's kind of tough. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Is we're talking about it as like a reward, but there's no reward. I'm a fan of Baylor, which is not a historically good program. I don't look forward to the Dollar General Bowl when we go 6-6. I don't look forward to it. I hardly even watch because it's just sad because we're not any good. You don't want to go watch. You just watch your team go 6-6. You want to go watch them lose again? I'm good. Thanks.
The kids are there to win a conference championship and then a national championship. The small schools for sure. They're like Western Michigan, Eastern Michigan. They're there to win the MAC championship at that school. So, any final thoughts before we move on to the best segment that we have on this podcast?
Michigan schools are catching a lot of stray bullets today.
We're wearing them out. All right, so let's move on from college football. Monday night, Bama, Georgia, going to be a great game. Let's go to one of our segments that we have created, Mason Cuds, who the hell are you? Who you got this week, Cud?
Okay, this week I had to go look in the NBA. They are picking up players off the streets for all these COVID cases and, injuries. Hell, Lance Stevenson just came back in the league. But this week's Who the Hell Are You is Kiefer Sykes.
I knew that's who you were going to pick.
For the Indiana Pacers. Last night, they played in the Garden. He had 22 points, 4 boards, and 6 assists. Shot 50% from the field. Pretty good game for my man Kiefer, but they came up short, lost 10. He is the Who the Hell Are You?
Y'all going to make fun of me if I know where he went to college?
Not at all.
He went to Green Bay, Wisconsin Green Bay. He was good there, too.
What's their mascot, Bob?
I think they're the Phoenix. Green Bay Phoenix. Cud, I was thinking about it all day. I was like, man, who's he going to pick? And then I saw he had like 20-something for the Pacers. Like, he's picking Kiefer Sykes, I promise. So
yeah, I was like, who in God's name is this guy, and how did he end up in the league?
There's so many of those players right now in the NBA. They're all getting these 10 days. So, Cuds, who the hell are you? Staple for the 903 podcast. So, after that, let's dive into a little NFL. We got the playoffs. We got, in my opinion, one of the worst weekends in sports is the last week of the NFL season. You got a bunch of backups that play, and none of these games matter.
Like bowl games?
Yeah. Pipe down over there, no fun police. So, but essentially, unfortunately, Hunter, yeah, you're kind of right. It's kind of like the Bowls. You got the opt-outs, you got backups playing, all this stuff. So you make a fair point. But so NFL's coming up. We have 14 teams now that make the playoffs. Very odd. But there's a team that I know you all like very much. Must be nice into the playoffs. The Dallas Cowboys. They are officially locked in. Their game is somewhat meaningless, playing for a seed against the Eagles Sunday. So, Hunter, let me ask you this. Dallas Cowboys, can they win the Super Bowl? Yes or no? Plain answer.
Do I just get one word?
No, you can go dive into it.
Well, I'm going to say yes, they can, but they got to figure something out.
I agree.
Zeke Elliott does not look like an NFL running back, especially compared to Tony Pollard. You watch Pollard come in, he's supposed to be the change of pace back. He's supposed to be, this definitely, at least on the pay scale, the secondary back, right? Pollard comes in, he looks like the A back. He looks like the guy.
He's got more pop.
So, exactly. Zeke looks sluggish. He's slow. He's got to liven up a bit. And then, ever since Dak came back from his calf injury, he's not been the same either.
He is.
And so I'd love to sit here and tell you that, I'm picking them. I'm definitely not picking them to win the Super Bowl. But do they have a chance? Yeah, I think they do. They've clearly got the talent. And you watch the way they played the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season before Dak went down with his calf. Man, I think that team's still in there. They've just got to figure it out on offense. The defense isn't stellar, obviously, but they do generate enough turnovers. They're going to allow points, but the offense has the talent to score points. I mean, there's really not a big weakness on the offense. So you just watch him play right now, and there's just such a lack of confidence, especially with Dak, the way that he's missing easy throws out in the flats. I mean, he's throwing them into the coaches right now. He's just trying to hit somebody out in the flat, and it's not good. So the talent's clearly there. They've got kind of, like you said, not a meaningless game this weekend, but maybe they can get some reps in a lower pressure environment. They've already got everything sewn up. So maybe they can gain a little bit of momentum this week and ride that hot hand into the playoffs.
Get some momentum. Yeah, I agree. Dallas, when Dallas had a really good ball club 2 or 3 years ago when Dak and Zeke kind of first came onto the scene, what was their identity? Ground and pound, run the ball, Dak be a game manager, make plays when he needs to. Zeke runs the ball 25 times for 120 yards. Now it's Dak throw the ball 55 times and we'll give Zeke the ball 15, he'll run for 40. I mean, if you look at Zeke's stat line all year, it's 15 carries for 45 yards, 15 carries for 52 yards. That's not how Dallas is going to win ball games. And Dallas' defense is getting a little better. Micah Parsons might be one of the best defensive players in the league already. That kid is unbelievable. And he might have been the steal of the draft. Trayvon Diggs creates turnovers on that defense. But like you're right, Hunter, they do give up a lot of points. I'm not exactly sure why they do that because they do cause a lot of turnovers. But they also give up 25, 30 points a week. So Dallas has got to get back to their identity. They've got to get back to ground and pound, eat the clock, keep the ball away from your opponent, play the field position game, kind of uglied up a little bit. If they do that, I think Dallas can win the Super Bowl. I really do. And I read today that the Super Bowl might be in Dallas, for they may be relocating. So that'd be a huge advantage for the Cowboys to get to play at home. So it'll be interesting. Cud, thoughts on Dallas? Super Bowl chance?
I agree with Hunter and you. I think it is very possible. But, all season long, we're so inconsistent. You would play a game and, Dak comes out, and has got 300 yards at half. And we're up by 21 in the blink of an eye. But then all of a sudden we play next week, and like you said, Cameron, Zeke went from a staple in our team to, man, is he going to get 40 yards this week? Right. And I think if we can fix the inconsistency on offense, I think the defense is there to win a Super Bowl. But I think it comes down to the run game and Dak, like you said, Hunter, making throws. And, we just lost Michael Gallup to an ACL tear. But, having guys like Cedric Wilson in there off the bench helps a ton. So, I think the talent's there. I think it comes down to the offense, honestly. But I think it's possible.
The problem for Dallas is the NFC runs through Lambeau Field. That's the toughest place to win in the NFL, and they're going to have to go through that red-hot team and win in Lambeau if they want a Super Bowl chance. Can they do it? Yes. They got to play a really, really good game because Aaron Rodgers is balling right now, and that Packers defense is balling right now. So that'll be a tough place to play. I'd like to see Dallas go get a win. Obviously, I jump on the Cowboys bandwagon because the Jets season's over by week 3 every year. So I'll be rooting for Dallas. I need to see my man Dak play a little bit better. I think they need to take the pressure off of him and stop making him throw the ball 55 times a game. So it'll be interesting. Trent, any thoughts on Dallas?
I honestly don't think they have a chance of winning the Super Bowl.
It's not a hot take. That's not a hot take.
Listen, they haven't won a divisional round game since I was born. Before I was born,
it's been a while. No, they've won one. They haven't won a.
No, that's not a divisional round game though. That's
the
wild card.
You're right. You are correct.
So until I see them get out,
oh my gosh,
that's what I'm saying. It's pretty bad, and like y'all were just saying, I got to see more out of Dak. We were kind of on a hot streak, but we beat a lot of terrible teams. We beat the Redskins, the Saints, the Giants, Washington again. Whenever we play a team with a pulse, we get beat. And I don't know if that's because we're relying too much on Dak, and I personally think we're feeding the wrong running back. I think Tony Pollard needs to get 3 times the amount of play he's been getting. But I think we have a chance to win. I think we have a chance to win to get out of the divisional round. But as far as you're saying, Cam, you got to go on the road to Lambeau, beat Aaron Rodgers, and maybe his last season with Green Bay. I don't know. I don't see that happening. But
I will say this: it's not a good look for Dallas to go get beat at home by a really cold Arizona Cardinals team last Sunday.
Yeah,
because that's a playoff team. That's who you're going to be playing, and Dallas did not play well at all in that game. So, because in the NFC's top heavy, Cardinals, Rams, Cowboys, Packers. They're going to have to bring it, and it'll be interesting, like you said. So we'll see. And yeah, that is true, Trent. Dallas has not played in an NFC Championship in my lifetime. They've won would they win maybe 2 wild card games that I can remember. So they have not had recent success in the playoffs, unfortunately. So hopefully they can turn it around. I'd like to see them do that. So let's jump into some little Super Bowl predictions here, Cud. I've got mine. I thought about it quite a bit this afternoon. So Cud, give me your Super Bowl prediction and winner.
Man, it's honestly, I haven't really thought about it a whole lot because there's a lot of good ball clubs in this year's playoffs, and honestly, there's some teams in there that really haven't been consistent and stout all year that could get hot once they get in. Quite honestly, take this weekend, for example. On Sunday, the Raiders and the Chargers have a play-in game. Winners in. The Chargers' offense is explosive in the league as you can get, really. And if that defense can somehow, make some turnovers happen, I think they could, not win it, but I think they could make a run. And that's just kind of an example of, I think there's that much talent in this year's playoff run, And, you got Tampa Bay and Kansas City trying to run it back. You got the Rams, who I think have been struggling big time. you got the red hot Packers, and I think you got kind of like a up in the air Dallas Cowboys team. So I don't know about as far as the prediction of winning or losing and who will be there, but I think any of those ball clubs could be at the last dance.
Yeah, that's a good point. The league is kind of flattened itself out this year. I think the Packers are your best team, but there's 7 or 8 really good teams right below it. Bills, Titans, Cardinals, Rams, Cowboys. There's a whole handful of them. Buccaneers, Tom Brady. So my prediction, I thought about it. I think it's going to be Chiefs, Packers, Super Bowl. The Chiefs have really come on lately. We all wrote the Chiefs off beginning of the year, and Pat Mahomes doesn't look right. Something's wrong. Travis Kelce's dropping passes, can't run the ball. And now that defense is looking unreal. I have no idea where that came from. One of the worst defenses in the last couple of years, and now they're balling. So I think the Chiefs lost to Cincinnati Sunday. I think they'll be ready. I think they're hungry from losing the Super Bowl last year. And I think they play Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl. And I think the Chiefs beat them. For whatever reason, Aaron Rodgers, one of the greatest quarterbacks of our lifetime, they don't win in the playoffs. They don't. He has 1 Super Bowl. And arguably is the most talented quarterback we've ever seen. Just pure talent-wise. And he has 1 Super Bowl. Got beat by the Bucs in the NFC Championship last year. They just can't seem to get it done late in the playoffs. And I don't know why. And they'll be in Lambeau for most of the playoffs, so that'll be interesting. But I'm going Chiefs to get revenge from last year. I think there's way too much talent on the offensive side of that ball. And Mahomes and Tyreek Hill and the boys, they get it clicking and they go for the win. So, Trent, prediction Super Bowl?
Yeah, that'll be interesting because I think
it'll be a hell of a game.
You've always reminded me of this. The team that loses a Super Bowl the next year typically doesn't even sniff the playoffs.
And it was looking like that at the beginning of the year. It's like, wow, this Super Bowl curse is real, and the Chiefs have turned it around. So
yeah, and they've turned it around late in the season too. So they're getting hot at just the right time. I know they lost to the Bengals and Joey Burrow, but like you said, Cameron, I wouldn't bet against Pat Mahomes in the playoffs. But I personally think it's the same matchup, Green Bay versus the Chiefs. But I think Aaron Rodgers gets them. I just think he is playing so good at the right time. Their defense is playing good. Devontae Adams, of course, is making plays. But you got guys like Allen Lazard stepping up, making plays left and right. I mean, he's come on as the number 2 receiver.
Yes.
And he's playing some good ball. So, and I like both the running backs. You got A.J. Dillon, you got the power in A.J. Dillon, and then you got Aaron Jones. I think it's the same setup, but I think the Packers get them.
It seems like the Packers are going all in for this. Is everything they've been doing for the last few years is all coming together this year. And if they don't win it this year, they're probably going to blow it up.
They've drafted a lot of defensive talent over the last couple of years.
It looks like everything they've been doing is building towards this year. So, Hunter, what about you? Super Bowl prediction?
You know, it's crazy. Coach was talking about how much parity there is in the league, and I agree with that. But then the 3 of us have the same exact Super Bowl matchup. So, is there that much parity? I don't know. Because I have the same thing. I've got Packers, Chiefs, and I have the Chiefs winning, just for the same reason that Aaron Rodgers just doesn't win Super Bowls. I can't explain it. But
that's weird.
I will say I wouldn't be surprised if they pull it off, the Packers, because Aaron Rodgers does seem to have a different size chip on his shoulder this year. He always plays like he has a chip on his shoulder. He talks like he has a chip on his shoulder. But this year it just seems bigger. It's like a boulder on his shoulder this year. You know, you listen to him talk in interviews, he just seems mad. And he has so much talent that I think a nice, angry Aaron Rodgers may just be able to get through and win a Super Bowl, do something that he's not typically been all that good at. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I'm not betting on it for sure.
If the Packers win the Super Bowl, you think he rides off into the sunset, Hunter?
I think he's gone no matter what. Wait, you mean out of the NFL or out of Green Bay?
He's done for good.
Man, I don't know. I don't think so, especially not seeing what Brady's doing. Again, the dude's got too big of an ego to just say, hey, Tom, I know you're 7 years older than I am, and you're still playing as good as I am, but I'm gone. He can't do that. He'll go find somewhere else to play and try and show up Tom Brady as much as he can.
Trent, you think he rides off into the sunset?
I'm like Hunter. I think he has a lot left out there. I mean, as good as he's playing, I don't see him riding off in the sunset. But then again, you got a cat like Calvin Johnson retiring early, and so maybe Aaron Rodgers retires if he wins the Super Bowl, but I don't think he does.
He's staring in the eyes of back-to-back MVPs. It'd be hard to see him leave the league, but nothing would surprise me with that guy. If he feels content on that Super Bowl and retires, and it would not surprise me. So
it is true. Anybody retiring that wouldn't surprise me would be Aaron Rodgers, like you're saying. I mean, you just never know with a guy
Nothing
like that.
surprises me with that guy. So, well, that's a little NFL talk. Playoffs coming up 2 weeks from now, so it's going to be interesting. Like we said, there's a lot of really good teams this year, so it could be a lot of fun to watch. So let's move on to another staple segment from 903 Sports. We shall play Keep or Banish. So I've got 5 NFL quarterbacks listed here, all very average as far as NFL standards. I don't believe any of these quarterbacks are going to be in the playoffs, except for the last one. Niners might get in. So let's just go ahead and move him first. Let's go Jimmy G. Keep or banish? And Cut, I'll ask you.
You know, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. He's just inconsistent when you watch them play. And honestly, with the Niners the last 2 or 3 years, they have been from top to bottom depleted with injuries on both sides of the ball. So, I mean, that kind of helps him out, in this argument. But, if I'm making the decision, John Lynch, I think you give him maybe one more year. You just drafted Trey Lance. Let him sit there another year, play a few games there and there, and you have him if Jimmy G blows out his knee or whatever for next year. So I think one more year wouldn't hurt. Now, as from a contract standpoint, I don't really know his details right now, but I think you could survive another year with him throwing the ball, especially as comfortable having Trey Lance sitting on your bench.
Yeah, he's on a big 5-year deal that they signed him to a couple years ago, so they're kind of tied into that. But if he goes out, he's hurt. I don't know if he's going to play Sunday, but if he does go out and play Sunday, and they lose to the Rams and miss the playoffs, with as much talent as they have, like you said, they have battled a lot of injuries. But if they go out and miss the playoffs this year, that quarterback seat's going to get red hot over there in San Francisco, and they may be calling for Trey Lance. I agree with you, though. I don't know if it's quite ready, if it's quite time to pull the plug on old Jimmy G in San Fran. So let's go to QB number 2. Let's ask Hunter, the old man, Matty Ice, Matt Ryan in Atlanta. Keep or banish?
Yeah, I'm going to have to banish Matt Ryan. I think his day has come. He's been around for too long, and when did he win the MVP? Was that 2016?
That would have been my
17?
sophomore year of college, 2016, I believe, when they blew it in the Super Bowl. Yeah,
that year. And he hasn't been remarkable at all since then. He's been unbelievably average, and he's getting up there in years now. I mean, he's not quite Brady by any means, but he's, what is he, mid-30s, probably 34, 35 now?
He's 35, yeah, he's mid-30s. And he's not a mobile QB.
No, that's getting up there in age for somebody who's, at best, league average. If you're not putting up good numbers and you're 35 years old, it's time for us to move on and try and find somebody else. If I'm the GM of that team, try and rebuild an identity, because it's not like the Falcons are knocking on the doorstep of winning a Super Bowl, if he just sticks around for another year. So if I'm GM of the Falcons, banish. He's done.
Yeah, I think time's ticking on old Matt Ryan. I think they definitely need to draft a quarterback at least and get somebody else in there to put at least some pressure on him. So we'll move on to quarterback number 3. Trent, this is perfect for you considering how much you bashed him when he came into the league, and then he got red hot for a little bit. So we were like, you're wrong, Trent. And now he's kind of trash again. So Trent Sansom, Jared Goff, keep or banish?
The grass is always greener. I mean, who is Detroit going to get?
That's true.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, but at the same time, I mean, the guy's not in the top 20. Well, yeah, he's not in the top 20 in any of the most important stats. He's 23rd in yards. He's tied for 20th in touchdowns. He's 24th in QBR. I mean, I haven't watched a ton of the Detroit games or kept up with them for good reasons. I mean, they're terrible.
Don't blame me.
But I don't think they have a ton of talent over there either. I will say, I mean, you put him right back on the Rams where he just came from, and it doesn't look a lot different, in my opinion. But I have a lot of opinions on Matt Stafford as well. To me, it just depends where you put Jared Goff. So I don't know if I banish him or what. I mean, he's so average. But it just depends if he gets in the right scenario.
I agree.
But I don't think you're going to win any championships with the guy.
I think Jared Goff is as league average as you can get. He's definitely got a place in the NFL. He's got a.
But if you
go ahead. I think Jared Goff would be good on a team that's got a really good team around him, like the Rams had, and he can win you some games. He's not going to win you games in Detroit. I think Detroit needs to banish Jared Goff and go get rookie and build him up and then let that culture go.
Yes.
It's not a good fit in Detroit.
No,
you can clearly see that. I think Jared Goff would be good. I mean, kind of how Jimmy G is in San Fran, or maybe Jared Goff go to the Saints. I mean, they may have a QB opening down there.
Yes.
So that may be kind of where he falls. So, Hunter, any thoughts on Jared Goff there? I know you wanted to pop in.
Yeah, just real quick. I was going to say, Trent said, well, who are they going to get? Well, of any of the quarterbacks we're looking at, they're probably in the best position to get somebody in the draft because they're going to be drafting right up there near the top just because of how bad of a year Jared Goff has had. So not saying that they'd get a rookie and he'd come in and play great, but at least they'd get somebody and try to start developing a new identity around a QB.
Yep, I would tend to agree. I think. Go ahead, Trent.
Well, I was going to say, I would typically agree. I mean, I do like Kenny Pickett coming out, but outside of that, I don't know this quarterback.
That's a good point. I mean, that's a good point.
It is a weaker QB class in the NFL. There's what you got Matt Corral and Kenny Pickett, and that's probably your only first round guys.
We say that every year, and then come late March, we'll be talking about how stacked this QB class is. So it happens every year where guys go in the off season and they skyrocket. So.
Well, I had name number 4 on here, but I think we might all be leaning towards banish on poor old XFL Taylor Heineke. Anybody keeping Heineke? Anybody?
I'm keeping him.
Yeah, of course you are. I mean, he belongs on an NFL roster, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, so this is why I say keep. I say you keep him, but you go sign a free agent or make a trade up in the draft. I don't think you should roll him out next season starting. But I think he plays super hard. I think he knows the offense. He's got Terry McLaurin there. Antonio Gibson's a great back, I think. And their defense, honestly, their front seven, I think, is one of the best in the league. But I would, if somehow they could arrange it to where they could keep him on the team and kind of have him as standby at least for another year, maybe. I think that would be ideal in their situation.
Yeah, I think he definitely belongs in the league. I don't know if he necessarily is your franchise guy, but he definitely belongs. I mean, he belongs on a roster spot. He's had some bright spots this year, but I think the Cowboys killed him off on Sunday night. That was hard to watch for poor old Heineke. So our 5th QB is going to be the hardest one. This is the one I'm still not sure what I would do. And I'll start with you, Trent, on mighty Kirk Cousins. Keep or banish for the Minnesota Vikings?
He's a keep for a different team. I don't think with the Vikings. I mean, he has talent with the Vikings, but at this point, I don't see it working out. I mean, how long has he been there?
This is year 3, and the Vikings have more talent than anybody on offense in the league.
Exactly.
They can't get in the playoffs.
They have a lot of talent over there. Yeah. So, I mean, he has good stats. I mean, if you pull it up and you look at it, he's 10th in yards, 9th in touchdowns, 15th in QBR. That's kind of the issue. You should really be 15th QBR with those cats that you have, but. If I was the Vikings, I'd try with somebody else just because of the sole fact you have so much talent. Try to bring in somebody else.
If I'm the Vikings, I'm getting on the phone and I'm calling Seattle as soon as the season's over, and I'm asking about Russell Wilson. It looks like he's on his way out of there, and look, Kirk Cousins is a little, maybe just a touch better than Jared Goff. League just average NFL QB. I mean, Case Keenum took the Vikings to the NFC Championship a few years ago, and he's as average as they get in the NFL. So, I mean, you're throwing the ball to Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. You got Dalvin Cook in the backfield. Their defense is pretty bad, and that has killed them this year. But if I'm Minnesota, I'm looking to make a change at QB. I'm banishing Kirk Cousins, and I'm calling for Russell Wilson or another big name free agent QB if there is one, and looking to make a change in Minnesota. Hunter, any thoughts on Big Cousins?
Well, I had keep coming into this, but I think you've talked me into it with. Even though his stats are fine and he's a decent enough quarterback, they have the cast around them, kind of like I was saying about how the Falcons are not a quarterback away. The Vikings might just be a quarterback away. And so Kirk Cousins just isn't that quarterback. So I think you've done and talked me into banishing Kirk Cousins, trying to find somebody, maybe by the name of Russell Wilson, to come in and help you win a Super Bowl with the talent that they have on offense.
Man, Russell Wilson slinging it to Justin Jefferson would be something to watch on Sundays. So that is keep or banish. I want to do one more segment before we move on to our final segment because I know we got to go. We can just do it real quick. Let's do top 5 people, living or dead, that you'd want to have a beer with. An off-sports subject that we always like to do on 903 Sports. So I'll start with you, Cud. This is A great expertise for you, my friend. Top 5 people you want to have a beer with.
Okay, honestly, I got really no order in my top 5 because any of them would be pretty sweet. So coming in at number 1, Ronald Reagan himself.
Ooh.
Coming in at number 2, Nick Saban.
Oh.
Number 3, Clint Eastwood. I've always loved him in his movies. And 4, George W. Bush. And number 5, John Daly.
Wow.
That's a good pick there.
That is an incredible list. Yeah, John Daly. Didn't make my list. I blew it there. I should have put him on mine. All right, Trent. Top 5 people you want to have a beer with, living or dead.
Cudge's, I don't know if I can top Cudge's list. And none of those guys are in my top 5. But those are excellent choices. Gosh, John Daly would be tremendous to have one with.
Real.
Yeah. But I would go with, so I just visited Alamo, and I got to thinking about it. Man, I would love to ask William Travis if he actually drew the line in the sand to cross over and fight for the Republic of Texas.
Great question.
In our independence. So that's number 1. And then after that, it'd probably be, man, I love Matthew McConaughey and Denzel Washington. Those are some of my favorite actors. Denzel's my all-time favorite, but Matthew being from East Texas, us being from East Texas, I think you could have some wonderful stories there. And then y'all may not know Theo Vaughn, but, man, he's probably my favorite comedian.
He's hilarious.
Yeah, he's so funny.
He'd be a great one to have one with, too.
Yeah, I think you could just talk for hours with that guy.
Oh,
and then my last one would probably be my pop. He died when I was 10, and I knew how much of a character he was, but I always hear about how much of a character he was. So I think that would honestly, he'd probably be my number 1, but it'd be awesome to get to have a drink with him.
Great list there, Sansom. Very nice. Honor, top 5.
All right. So I'm going to go in order 5 to 1 here. So I'm going to go number 5. Cut already said it, George W. Bush. Number 4, Adrian Beltre. I feel like he'd know how to have a good time. Number 3, Tiger Woods. That goes without saying. But only if he's got some sort of like truth serum, honesty hour going, because I don't want to just sit there and have him give me, press conference answers. I'd want, real conversation with Tiger, which is something that nobody really gets. Number 2 on my list is Scott Van Pelt. I feel like that'd be a great guy to sit down and have a beer with. And then number 1, I'm a bit of a history buff, is George Washington. I feel like he'd be a heck of a guy to sit down and just listen to stories over and over and over again. That's my list.
Gosh, I shouldn't have gone last. I just want to cheat off everybody's list now. Okay, I'm going to go with
plagiarism.
I'm going to go with my original list, even though I wish I could change it now. Cut, I'm a little disappointed. I got 5 Eminem. Can't believe he wasn't on your list. He's kind of a weirdo. So, I could see why people want to hang out with him. I'd love to have at least one beer with Slim Shady. Number 4, I went with Big Cat from Barstool. I think Big Cat is one of the funniest humans ever, and he'd be a great guy to have a drink with. Number 3, Peyton Manning, go Vols. He's hilarious. The Manning cast, I don't know if y'all watch those. He's so funny. Talk Tennessee football. He'd be a great one. And then number 2, a staple of all of our lists, George W. Bush. Loves America. Just all politics aside, just awesome guy. Loves America. George Bush, Texan. We talked Rangers baseball. He'd be a great one. And you all blew it. You all lost. Number 1 guy to have a beer with that ever lived is Stone Cold Steve Austin, the king of beers. Stone Cold Steve Austin. How could he not make the list? The greatest beer drinker to ever live. John Daly's a good one. Might should have had him, but Stone Cold's number 1. So
that was pretty solid 20, guys.
That was really good.
I'm content with my number 1, Bob.
Did y'all have a guy that was sitting right on the outside? Because I thought about somebody right before I said my list.
It took me forever to make mine. There were so many.
You know who popped in my head last second?
Who's that?
Tom Herman. So I could ask him, what the hell?
What? Tell him what happened, man.
What happened, man? Sam Edler in 4 years, all that talent, and then you go out and you go 7-5 and 7-3.
You tell him you miss him though. You're one of the few Herman guys left out there.
Hey, he's gonna win somewhere.
So, well, all right, we got to get going. So I'm gonna go to my last segment. Y'all don't know what this is. I think everybody knows that Brownie likes to go on a good rant. Am I right?
Yeah.
So we're going to go with the last segment. We're going to call it Brownie's Rants. And I've got a real good one. I want to make sure I don't yell into the computer so it's not bad audio. I've got a real good one that happened 6 days ago in a bowl called the Music City Bowl between the Tennessee Volunteers and the Purdue Boilermakers. In the most rigged, horrendously officiated game college football has ever seen. And you're telling me these bowls don't mean anything, Hunter? I was madder than a wet hen Thursday night. The Vols playing Purdue. Shootout game. We shouldn't have been in a close game with Purdue. I get that. Because they had a lot of guys out. Purdue was a decent team this year. Had a lot of guys out. We should have won that game. We did win that game. Let me get to it. There were 8 pass interference calls on Tennessee that I thought were outrageously bad. I mean, good defense. I mean, you call 2 or 3 of those, okay, you're going to get some physicality on the corner and the receiver going out for a route. They called all kinds of ticky-tack fouls. ACC refs, I don't know what they're doing in that conference. Soft conference. Garbage. So we get through all that. We get to overtime. Tennessee driving down the field, 4th and goal from the 1. We run a play. Looks like he stopped. Kid reaches across the goal line. Touchdown. Nope, they called forward progress, but blew the whistle after he crossed the goal line. Now tell me how that is forward progress after he crossed the goal line. And you can't review forward progress because their ACC refs are just like, well, I'm going to call forward progress here and we can't review it, so let's give Purdue the ball here. Purdue obviously kicks field goal and wins the game. Tennessee, robbed. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. I'm very upset. ACC officiating. Unhappy New Year to you. Vols 2022, boys. We're coming. We're ready. Hendon Hooker, Heisman sleeper. So that is Brownie's rant. And I hope everyone makes it to the end of the podcast to hear that because I needed to get that off my chest. So, boys, it was a pleasure. Any last words from anybody? From the first podcast of 2022, I'd like to do several of these. And it was a good time, boys. 903 Sports, we're out. We will try to have one once a week for everybody, and we'll get going. And that's all we got. Thanks for listening, everybody.